Okay, welcome back. We do welcome your emails, and on this discussion, we've had it several times. We're receiving no emails from people in authority who purport, I think, to know what's going on. I think the CMP is led by a splendid businessman, Collier Merrill, a guy that is devoted, I don't know, tens if not hundreds, I guess hundreds of hours to community good. Terrific person, but he's inherited a bag of problems that were not his in the making, nor some of the other CMPA members. So I want to be fair about that. And Collier's, I think, trying to figure out how to get through all of this, but it is a very difficult problem. We welcome comments. Welcome any of you to send us any information you think we've missed. If we've misjudged it or haven't characterized this properly, you can send us something. We'll read it verbatim on the air. Okay? Now, to the medals.
Now, if you get the News Journal, the front page story yesterday had a picture of the sheriff, and the sheriff is wearing military medals on the right side of his uniform, the sheriff's star, and then he's got something here that kind of looks like it's a Maltese Cross, and we're going to, first of all, there are supporters of the sheriff who say, this is not worthy of discussion. This shouldn't be discussed. It shouldn't be discussed. If you read the comments, why are we even discussing this? Well, we discuss Lindsay Lohan, but not this. Well, it's just an interesting thing to discuss. Just for openers, I would say, if the sheriff's an otherwise really good sheriff, and he's got some quirk that you disagree with, it's not that big a deal. This is not that big a deal. This is not like some politician with his hand in the public till.
Right.
You know, it's nothing like that. It's kind of a quirk. It's kind of it's an interesting thing to discuss. My reaction long ago was that somebody who designs his own kind of quasi-military costume is either in Gilbert and Sullivan or perhaps has an identity problem. I don't know that to be sure. I mean, the sheriff presents a very terrific appearance. I mean, he looks like the model sheriff. He's trim and he looks nice and everything. But this is his uniform, and it's on the News Journal. When he dresses up, he wears a gray coat. On the shoulders of the gray coat are 4 stars. The 4 stars look like the regular military insignia of a 4-star general. And if you're not familiar with the military, a 4-star general is as high as it gets. The highest generals in the U.S. military have 4 stars.
No 5 stars now.
Not now. No. In World War II, MacArthur was a 5-star general. Eisenhower was a 5-star general. There were a couple of others. This is when these commanders not only led American troops, but led other nations' troops, so they could distinguish them above General Montgomery or something. I mean, if you've got a big base, like a big Air Force base or a big Navy base, you'll have a 1-star or a 2-star in charge of that whole base. If you've got a division of troops, that's not a division. That may be a 1- or 2-star general, but a 4-star general controls armies. Man, that's a really big deal.
Well, then why does the sheriff weigh 4 stars?
Well, first of all, lots of other sheriffs do, and some wear 5 stars. I looked this up. In Jacksonville, the sheriff wears 5 stars, and he is an undersheriff which wears 4 stars. I don't know. The sheriff was a major, which is an 05, which has a gold cluster, so he must know the significance of the 4 stars, but he wears the 4 stars, and I think that is in accord with what sheriffs do. It looks a little odd to me as a former military person to see a 4-star general in charge of a few hundred civilian sheriff's deputies, but that is certainly in accord with what the sheriffs do.
Do these other sheriffs wear military medals?
Not that I know of.
On their sheriff's uniform.
That gets to
with
the main
the 4
thing.
stars.
Right. You got the 4 stars, and you have some gold braid around here, which I think is kind of consistent too. But then, and on the left side of his uniform, that's where you wear your sheriff's star. So that's the big sheriff's star, and of course he has to wear that. That's the insignia of the sheriff's department.
Right.
So he wears that. And he's got his military medals, which he earned. He retired as a major in the Air Force. He spent 20-some years in the Air Force. Honorably, he earned these medals. He's not fudging at all. And he's got these medals on the right side of his uniform. Well, the military is sticky about that stuff. I mean, if you showed up in the military, all the military medals on the left, there's maybe 1 or 2 little exceptions. You have some kind of little commendation a couple little things can go on the right. But basically, if you look at the military, your wings, your combat infantryman's badge, all of that goes on the left, and above that are all the little ribbons that really are the ribbons that support medals. So they call them medals and ribbons kind of interchangeably. On dress uniforms, you can actually wear medals that hang down. So he's got all those on the right side of his uniform.
But that's wrong.
Well, it's certainly not in accord with what the military does, and the idea of it, this has been going back and forth, and you've got something, the News Journal thoroughly checked out, read the story on the news, they thoroughly checked out all the justifications. Well, it's been recommended by the VA, and, well, not exactly. It's at best a gray area. You know, that's not a big deal to me, the fact that I'm not a big deal for civilians following a lot of rules. He's a civilian.
But Bill, you've served in combat. I mean, you were an awards officer in combat in the Marine Corps. Isn't it slightly offensive, the presentation of these medals on the wrong side, coupled with 4 stars, mixing a custom of the sheriff's office with military medals in a non-combat...
It clashes to me, because the one thing you never do in the military is design your own anything. They tell you exactly how you dress, exactly where everything goes. That's the military. You know, this is lined up with that, and this goes here, and this is exactly what you'll wear. And then they said, the uniform of the day is now changed to this, and then you wear something else. That's the point of the military. It's uniform. You look down the ranks, and everybody's got the same stuff, you know.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
Well, yes, actually. Honestly, the first thing I thought of, let's go to one other thing that he wears.
Okay.
And that is this Maltese Cross, and we've got a picture of that. This is, and he doesn't wear it all the time, I'm sure, but this picture was in the News Journal, and we've got that, and we can put that up. Okay. You notice right under his tie is this Maltese Cross. Now, how did he win that? Well, he actually kind of bought it. There's a distant relative of the Russian czars, the Romanovs, who's kind of given these things out. You become a knight in this by, you got to give them $1,000 and then province to give them some more money, and then you get this thing. So that is not an award in any sense.
Could I be a knight?
I think you could. You got $1,000?
I've wasted other $1,000. I wish I would have bought being a knight.
Where would you wear it, though? You don't have a uniform.
I would wear it.
You'd wear it?
Yeah, I'd wear it right around my neck, so everybody would see it.
Would you?
Why would you pay $1,000 for something nobody would see?
Well, that's a good point. You paid $1,000, you might as well wear it.
You don't wear it in your underwear.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
But that's kind of...
Have you seen this Maltese Cross before?
Yes. The first thing this reminded me of, first of all, I've always been fascinated by Kaiser Wilhelm II. Kaiser Wilhelm II got to be a Kaiser when his father died in the late 19th century, and unfortunately, the Kaiser was born with a deformed arm. And he was the most bellicose, military. I mean, he wore all kinds of different uniforms like they did in those days. Not just him. All the leaders wore all these military uniforms. And we have a picture of a uniform worn by the Kaiser. There it is. Now look at that decoration he's got. That's an iron cross, but it's just a striking similarity. I like the bird on the top. Now we're not saying that.
Well, that's exactly the same as the Maltese Cross.
It looks like it, doesn't it? Maybe it is.
Well, it is. Let me tell you how I know the Maltese Cross is it has 8 points.
Mm-hmm.
These 8 points are supposed to tie into the Beatitudes from the New Testament. They're supposed to tie into other virtuous things. There's all kinds of stories about the Maltese Cross. But could we go back and see the picture of the sheriff again? If you could just... I'm telling you,
it does look like a Maltese cross.
It is. They're both Maltese crosses, okay? And
now,
not to say there's anything wrong with the cross symbol itself.
Kaiser Wilhelm, because he was so bellicose, basically started World War I. I mean, he did.
I know you told me that before we started today.
Well, when Archduke Ferdinand got assassinated by a Serbian, the question was, what was Austria going to do? And the Serbs were backpedaling like mad. And Kaiser Willie said, don't give them an inch. Just demand all kinds of things that they can't possibly meet. He kind of pushed Austria to take this very hard stand, which basically started World War I, which basically was responsible for World War II.
You're not blaming any of this on the sheriff?
No, I don't think the sheriff was around it. It's certainly not his fault.
Or his relatives, right.
But when you see somebody wearing a military-type uniform of their own design, to me, if he wants to do it, I don't care. I mean, I wouldn't try to find it. It just kind of is a discordant note.
It's something.
It reminds me of the Pirates of Penzance.
Yeah.
I am the very model of a modern major general. And if you look up the Pirates of Penzance, That's kind of the uniform they wear too.
Well, we have 4 stars.
4 stars.
Okay.
No,
we have the Maltese Cross.
And
we have
the military
medals
right.
on the wrong side.
Right.
So we have sort of some people would argue a religious symbol of the Maltese
right.
Cross. We have the 4 stars that the
right.
average person on the street could confuse for military as a 4-star general, even though
right.
it's customary among sheriffs. And it's all mixed up together in, as you said, a uniform that he has designed.
Yeah. And the sheriff says, well, it's to honor, you know, I'm proud of my service. Well, he should be proud of his service. He served honorably. He got to be a major. He started as an enlisted man, got to be a major.
Pretty big deal.
That's pretty good. A lot of people don't do that.
A good deal.
One of his medals is a pretty high medal. Now, he doesn't have the real high combat awards because he wasn't in combat.
Right.
So he never had the chance to get those medals. Maybe he would have. The Meritorious Service Medal is a pretty good award. Then he's got commendation medals. Now, once you get down, you see all these medals, and this is true of anybody you see with a bunch of medals. Once you kind of get down to the lower rank of medals, they don't mean that much.
They don't mean a whole
The
lot.
National Defense Service Award is anybody who was in the service during this period of time.
Yeah.
You get that for breathing in and out.
And you actually awarded awards, didn't you? I mean, you decided.
Well, I was the awards officer. Now, a lot of these awards you get automatically. We had the Vietnam Campaign Vision, the Vietnam Service Ribbon. We had a unit award, which, you know, anybody in the unit got. Then the Vietnamese gave us a unit award.
Kind of like a participation trophy.
Yeah, it's a been there.
Very similar to that. All right, I want to read what we believe, not sure about this, what we believe is the Air Force Manual, Section 11.4, and there's some other distinctions.
Well, you didn't make this up. I mean, it came off the internet.
It got off the internet, and of course, who knows if what's on the internet is true. This says, wear of awards and decorations by retirees and honorably discharged veterans. Okay? Retired and honorably discharged Air Force members may wear full-size or miniature medals on civilian suits on the appropriate occasions, such as Memorial Day and Armed Forces Day. Female members may wear full-size or miniature medals on equivalent dress. Now, we're not certain if this is the Air Force Manual, and I don't believe it was covered in the Pensacola News Journal story.
I don't think that was, but read the story. It's very interesting. Now, the part that offends me, it strikes me. A lot of the ways people dress strike me as wrong. I think what offended me worse was the supporters in the comments saying, you shouldn't be talking about this. He served honorably, and you're running down an honorable person. He served honorably. Look, if you want to run for public office, he's smart enough to know and been around long enough to know that you are a legitimate. This is a very important figure in our community.
You bet.
And if this get-up means something to you, well, then that's something that ought to be disseminated.
All right, this is totally unrelated, but I'll discuss this with you as we have, in the past. Our viewers might be surprised to learn this, that in the upcoming election, if you are a registered Democrat or if you are an independent, you will not be able to vote for the sheriff's office because they have closed the primary. We do not attribute this.
This is a scandal.
We do not attribute this to Sheriff Morgan at all, period. But the primary was closed. I mean that sincerely because there's been a suggestion otherwise, which I wouldn't repeat because we don't know for sure who closed it. But if a write-in candidate puts their name in as a write-in candidate, it means the primary closes. So only Republicans in Escambia County will determine the next sheriff.
Now, if you don't, back up, you explained this to me. Back up a step. If you don't have opposition, this is a Republican primary.
Yes.
But of course, if there's no opposition, the Republican primary determines the election.
Right.
So if you don't have opposition, then that primary becomes open so that everybody, independent, libertarian, Democrats, everybody gets to vote, which seems pretty good.
And the most important office, probably for most of us, the sheriff's race is now closed to Republican primary.
And you can game the system.
You game the system.
But you run anybody. So I'm running as a write-in candidate that closes it and limits it to Republicans. So if a candidate thinks he's going to be advantaged, or she, I guess there's a she in this race too.
There's a she in not in the sheriff's race, but there's a she. Because the same thing has happened in the clerk's office race and in one of our representatives' races. They have closed the primary because someone has propped up a write-in candidate, which means now that nobody from the opposite party can vote. I think when people start to realize this,
the system. That's terrible.
It's existing all over the state. It is awful. It is disenfranchised in many communities. it has disenfranchised more than half of the registered voters.
It's the same idea as gerrymandering. You know, let's screw all. I want to get elected, and if that means kind of screwing people out of the franchise, well, I'll worry about that later.
And we're going to delve into this, and we're going to analyze across the state how many of these so-called closed primaries have been
I didn't know that until you brought it up. That is an outrage.
Yeah, well, we've been looking at it for some time and contemplating a possible action.
You always ask me why I was a registered Republican, because I want to vote in everything.
Right. Well, you're going to get a chance this time, and you'll get to vote.
I'll vote.
And I won't get a chance to vote for most of the offices that we have closed.
And
these three
I'm
offices.
not so sure I won't vote for Sheriff Morgan.
Yeah. No, and let's conclude the program by this. And I mean this quite sincerely. I think he's been a marvelous sheriff. He's done a good job. Okay, you don't hear a word of impropriety or dishonest conduct. He's a good person, okay, and I mean that sincerely. It's just this uniform thing is worth talking about. We ought to be able to talk about somebody running for public office.
And when I read the people saying, you shouldn't talk about this, I thought, well, that's exactly what we want to talk about on this show.
That's what we're going to talk about on this show. This is Within Reason, Bob Kerrigan and Bill Rankin. Send us your calls or comments, and again, we are sincere. If we've missed something, if we've misstated, if there's something we've missed on these subjects tonight, we want to hear from you and hope that you'll send them to us, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.
Good night.